I has sword. Not really a sword that many people use in One Piece, so I go, I guess the closest one that would be using this one would, I think, be Rebecca and some of the other gladiators, because this is like a Roman type sword. But yeah, so let's put that back over here. That is like at arm's reach if I like am like in here while I'm recording or while I'm working. I was just like, I has sword within arm's reach if necessary. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so this video is going to be kind of so I had a harebrained idea when I'm doing research on other stuff, and I'm like, well, we have the secret organization of Sword inside of the Marines that the only two members that we know about, of course, are Drake and Kobe. They're the only two confirmed members of Sword. There's, theories that like Garp and Sengoku and Helmeppo and, Aokiji are a part of it, possibly Fujitora and Ryukogu may also be members of Sword, but we don't know that. There's theories of, Smoker and, Toshigi, possibly Hina, a couple of other ones here and there that could be members of Sword. We just don't know because of the fact of that hasn't been revealed in the story. But where I kind of went with this was, well, if, Drake and Kobe are part of Sword, and if by chance Garp is part of Sword, which is, we're kind of led to believe that possibly Garp is because of the fact of he seems to want to defy the Celestial Dragons a lot, and on top of that, he is the one that trained Kobe, Kobe and Helmeppo, so that's why we kind of think by an extension Helmeppo might be also a member of Sword, considering that Helmeppo seems to be on the same ship as Kobe, or at the very least at Reverie they were on the same ship. I don't know if they are necessarily like on the same ship at the time that we're introduced to the concept of Sword when he's on his way to Amazon Lily, when Kobe is on his way to Amazon Lily. But my thought was, well, if Garp is a member of Sword, possibly a founding member of Sword, possibly something along those lines, we don't know. If Garp is, and if part of his intention of Sword is to possibly find a way to take down, the Yonko, but also take down parts of the world government, read as take down the Tenryubito, because I highly doubt that I highly doubt that Garp cares that much for the Tenryubito. He stated multiple times that he refused the rank of admiral because that would put him directly under the control of the Tenryubito, and he didn't want that under the direct control of the Tenryubito and the Gorosei. And by technicality, Im-sama, but he doesn't know that Im-sama exists. Well, I highly doubt that Garp knows that Im-sama exists. The only Marine rank I can assume that possibly knows about Im-sama is maybe whatever the heck Kong is. The commander-in-chief, whatever he's called him. He's about the only one, but even then, I highly doubt it. So I pulled out a couple of stuffed animals. I got a dinosaur. It's the closest thing I have to an Allosaurus. I have a small puppy that's kind of supposed to represent Kobe, just because Kobe just gives off puppy vibes. And then we have a dragon to represent the Revolutionary Army because of dragon. I also have a koala, stuffed koala. I don't have any stuffed fire or whatever the heck Sabo would be, so koala can go there. I also, for some reason, have an elephant and a monkey. Not sure why, but they seem like they went together. Also, I'm a monkey in the Chinese zodiac, so also, so is my sister, and we're 12 years apart. Do your own joke here. But one of the things that we see with Drake and Kobe is that if it is by chance that Garp is a member of Sword, possibly one of the leaders of Sword, possibly Garp and Sengoku, finally got fed up with like what the Marines were doing, possibly it started to be formed back when when the hunt was going on for Ace, when he was a child, when he was a baby, when the Marines are trying to find them, find all of these children and basically, we know that it was a slaughter of innocents that happened, which is something that happened in the Bible, yes. I don't know 100% if Oda is supposed to be making that a reference to the slaughter of the innocents in the Bible, but I wouldn't be surprised about it if it is, because, and this is something that's sometimes left out of the Bible story that you're told as a child, and you don't find out about it until you're older. That, after, Mary and Jesus and Joseph left Bethlehem, King Herod at the time, he had wanted to find out where the baby was because then he could kill the child because it was a threat to his rule. And what he basically ended up doing was he sent out um, a bunch of soldiers and said, okay, find all of these, boys that are under the age of 2 and slaughter them. And they did. And it was, all the boys within this certain area within like Bethlehem, I think, that were under the age of 2, and they did. And that is something that happened in One Piece in regards to probably Kong, who was probably the admiral at the time, the fleet admiral at the time, under the direction of the Gorosei, sent out, the different, sent out Marines to the South Blue, West Blue, wherever Ace was born. I can never remember which one it was, but sent them to those islands, and they found all these mothers that were pregnant. And even though they were, some of them were obviously married or had no connection whatsoever to Roger, them and their children, were, killed or held until they could possibly prove the child was not Roger's, whatever the case may be. And of course, we know during that time frame, Rouge just, prevented herself from giving birth. But I can see Garp and Son Goku like seeing this happen, particularly for Garp, because he went and he found Rouge and he took her in, and she had Ace, and then he raised put him with a mountain bandit family and said, here, take care of this child, and then occasionally showed up and threw Ace into the woods to train him, and then proceeded to do the same thing with Luffy. I've been over to a degree, how horrible of a grandfather Garp was when it came to Luffy and Ace. And Sabo by an extension in other videos, so I'm not going to go into that now. But one of the other things is that I can see that Garp saw all of this happening, and I can see that Garp and Son Goku saw this happening, and they decide, okay, we have to find a way to take down the Tenryubito. This, and the Gorosei, this cannot keep happening. This is ridiculous. And Sengoku became the fleet admiral sometime after that, and Garp is still one of the vice admirals. And this is why some people think that maybe Aokiji is also a member of SWORD, because the whole big battle that happened between him and Akainu, and him heading off and kind of defecting from the Marines after he lost, and going off on his own and just kind of wandering around, and now he's supposedly an ally of Blackbeard. Possibly finding a way to infiltrate that crew, well, the same way that Drake infiltrated the Kaido's crew. And so you can see that. I can see why Garp and Sengoku would be okay, well, by technicality we know that Luffy is not a bad pirate considering what we've seen him do, so we can't do anything with that. And then of course there's whole theories about Law being a member of SWORD because of Roshinate, and I'm okay, I could kind of get behind that. Maybe Roshinate was maybe an earlier member of SWORD, if it was still, if it had been founded at that point in time, that maybe Roshinate had been there, because he was, Sengoku's son, and if Sengoku was connected, and if Roshinate showed the same thing, it's the same idea of putting Roshinate, sending him in to, go undercover inside of, Doflamingo's crew and gather information that way and try to destroy them from the inside. Similar technique to what's going on with Drake going into, Kaido's crew and trying to, destroy them from the inside. Of course, that's found out by Queen and Who's Who. And then, of course, there's when, if it is that Aokiji has gone and, infiltrated Blackbeard's crew to gather information or try to destroy them from the inside, find a weakness, whatever, then that would also apply. And, that's the same technique being used multiple times, but there's, different variations of it that they're using. And, Drake obviously openly, like betrayed the world government, betrayed the Marines when he supposedly did this horrible thing that got him branded as a traitor, and then him and his crew left. And then, Aokiji had this very, open, dispute between him and, Akainu in regards to their battle to determine who would become the new fleet admiral. And, Aokiji lost and he went off. And then, of course, with Roshinate, it wasn't that he betrayed the Marines. It was just that he'd been raised by Sengoku and then like trained in how to be an agent, and then he ended up leaving Sengoku to go undercover, with the Doflamingo family. So it's not like he betrayed the Marines. There's still a betrayal happening in all of these, and the fact that, Drake supposedly betrayed the Marines, probably actually did something. Aokiji left the Marines, possibly will probably end up betraying Blackbeard, because Blackbeard does not strike me as someone that Aokiji would like willingly work with without a very good reason. And then, the same thing with Roshinate. He betrayed his brother in order to try to do what he thought was better in order to protect law and in order to try to stop Doflamingo. So there's that there. But the other thought that I had was, well, if it is that Dragon is a part of Sword, what other organization does he have a connection to? And that is, by technicality, the Revolutionary Army. And that would be, of course, where Dragon comes in, and Koala and Saba, and Hack and Ivankov and Bella Betty and all the others. And what we, kind of the concept that I had with that was, well, Dragon is obviously the head of the Revolutionary Army. Saba is the chief of staff. Depending on what's going on with Saba right now, by technicality, until he is officially declared dead, and we see that he is 100% dead, and all of that. And it's just is he dead beyond all belief? Yes. Okay, so is he actually dead? Moments. And I was like, those are legitimate questions to ask in One Piece. When it comes to that, since there's not that many characters that get killed outright, barring certain CPI just zero agents that are very much definitely dead. But one of the things, of course, was that I kind of had the thought was, well, if Dragon at some point had been a Marine, because there's that whole theory that Dragon was a Marine because he was Garp's son and he was raised, grew up on Don Island probably, and then he ended up getting put into the Marines by his father, and then he, became a Marine, and then from there he got high enough into the world, into the upper echelons, that he saw things that were going on and that he didn't like, and that he just got fed up with it. Part of that can tie into theories about his mother was a celestial dragon, or he fell in love with the celestial dragon and then had Luffy. Insert whatever you want there. But what I would see is, maybe it was Dragon and Garp had a lot of conversations about things, because, Garp's not the biggest touchy-feely type of guy, and Dragon does not strike me as the touchiest of feeliest types of guys when it comes to, okay, Dragon, we're going to talk about your inner emotions today. Go away, Ivankov. Darn it. It's just it's I don't see Dragon doing that. But the thing is that I can also see that at times Dragon and Garp having conversations, before Dragon left and started the Revolutionary Army, of having these conversations of I don't like what we see with the world government. I don't like this slave stuff. I don't like this concept of the Tenryubito being able to do whatever they want. I don't like the concept of the world government in regards to the countries working together is fine, but then you have the Gorosei there that can just override anything if they decide not that they don't like it. And you only have certain countries that are represented, and only if they can pay the the tribute and everything. And you look at that when it comes to I can assume that Dragon had a lot of issues with those things. And I can also see that Dragon had a lot of issues with just other things that he'd seen the Marines do in general. As I stated, there may have been something where possibly a buster call happened while Dragon was a Marine. If that was the case, and he saw what happened, not with Ohana specifically, not Ohana. That's Lilo and Stitch. That's different. O'Hara, you know, with like what happened with them, but like something similar happened to like a different island that like angered the world government enough that they set off a, buster call. There's a whole theory that maybe what happened at God Valley also resulted in a buster call and an attempt to destroy Rox and his crew and Roger. Rox and his crew at the time. But one of the other things is it the fact that, Dragon and Garp had all these conversations, and then like Dragon just like he just got so fed up with everything he saw in the Marines that he then left. He's just like, I can't do this anymore, Dad. I can't sit and wait around for this stuff to happen. I can't sit and wait around. Maybe he knew what Sword was. Maybe he had been part of Sword. Maybe that's where the connection came from, that like, well, during this time frame, Roshinate wouldn't have been sent off yet, but maybe Garp and Sengoku, possibly someone else, were like maybe coming up with this idea, and maybe Dragon kind of knew about it. Maybe Dragon had been someone that Garp and Sengoku were debating about like having be part of Sword. And then Dragon, up and left the Marines or whatever the case may be, or maybe he hadn't been a Marine and he'd still kind of learned about this thing that maybe his father was thinking about doing. And then Dragon left. During this time frame, of course, then, Roger is executed, and then everything happens with, the hunt for Ace and all of that, and, that whole slaughter that happens with all of those other children, and, Rouge dying, and then Ace ended up being with, Garp for, so long. But what we also see in that time frame is this is when Dragon is starting to build up the Revolutionary Army. He's finding, Ivankov and Belabetti and, Morley and Karasu and, Lindbergh, and, finding all of these other people, and like all of them are like finding their, second in commands and setting up their own bases of operation. He's like setting up Baltigo and all this other stuff, like Hack joins in that time frame. And then, like sometime later is like when Koala joins. And then of course, then, was 11 years ago or whatever, when like everything happens with Sabo in, the Goa Kingdom, that's, Dragon shows up there, and he saves Sabo along with a bunch of the other people from the Gray Terminal, and then they head off, and then of course Sabo gets raised in the in the Revolutionary Army without his memories, and we see a bunch of that happen. But I find it very hard to believe that Dragon and Garp didn't have any form of contact beyond whenever the heck Dragon left Luffy with Garp. And even in that time frame, Dragon would have, given Luffy to Garp somehow, or like left Luffy somewhere and like made sure that Garp found him, whatever the case may be. And we see a bunch of that, but it's also maybe during that time frame they were also communicating, and maybe during that time frame within the Marines, Garp and Sengoku were kind of trying to like build up Sword, find the right people within the Marines, the right, higher ranking or lower ranking people that showed signs of similar thinking to the way that they thought in regards to stopping the Tenryubito, stopping the Gorosei, being disgusted about like the slavery that they see, that they have to pretend to turn a blind eye to. And like all of this stuff, and like they just see all of that. Maybe some of the other initial ones were some of the Marines that were, instructed to carry out what happened when they were trying to find Ace. That's a possibility. And, and on the other side, it's like with Drake, he went through this whole thing where, he grew up, he was a kid when his father was a Marine. And then when, Diaz Barrels, did something that, resulted in him leaving the Marines, he, did the horrible act and then he left, and like legitimately left and became an actual pirate, not just like undercover the way that Drake was, but legitimately left and, became an abusive father to Drake. Drake then turns, does the whole 180 and goes into the Marines as soon as he can after what happens on Minion Island or Swallow Island, whatever. After what happens with the Op-Op-No-Mi and the Birdcage. And, he heads into the Marines, and maybe during that time frame, he showed something that Garp and Sengoku were like, that kid may be useful. Like, maybe he showed the right signs of, oh, I want to actually be what the Marines are supposed to be, this, where they actually take down the bad guys, but not just for the sake of destroying pirates, but actually taking down the people that actually did bad things. Whether those are corrupt Marines, whether those are corrupt government officials, whether those are corrupt rulers, corrupt, just other people that have actually done horrible things, not just because they're a pirate. And like, doesn't see the world as, black and white, with like the pirates as the black, all the bad and everything, and the Marines as the white, and like, oh, whatever the Marines and the world government say is instantly good, and whatever the, those pirates and the Yonko, whatever, what they do is instantly bad. And, I can see that maybe, Drake maybe had a similar image to that, where like, he's like, well, it can't be all bad. It, and like, he was around, the ship that he was found on would have been something possibly connected to Suru. But in that time frame, maybe he ended up, meeting Garp, meeting Sengoku, and maybe Garp saw something in him, and he like tells Sengoku, this kid, this Drake kid, I think he'd be a good fit for Sword. You're aware of who his father is, right? I'm aware, but I think that he would be a good fit. And then, like, and then in that time frame, there's always the whole theory that, like, oh, the Marine, Garp or Sengoku or whatever, like, gave Drake his, the Allosaurus fruit, and then he's able to, is like, okay, well, so you know who Kaido the Beast is? Yes. Okay, so a lot of his crew members have Ancient Zone's devil fruits. And we have an Ancient Zone devil fruit, and we would like to give it to you and then have you appear to betray the Marines and then go off and, become a pirate and then make your way into the New World. The dog is jingling. Make your way into the New World and make your way onto his crew. Impress him enough to get yourself onto his crew. And then get as high in that crew as you can and learn as much information as you can. And then when the opportunity strikes, you strike from the inside. And, you do that. You get information from them and you feed it back to us. And, like at some point in that time frame, it's like during that 2-year time frame, well, it would have been more like, I don't remember if we ever get an exact answer for how long exactly it's been since Drake betrayed the Marines, but I would assume it would have been, it's like, well, he was in the 2-year time skip, so I would assume it would have been like, 3 to 3.5 to possibly 4 years ago, but I don't remember if we get an exact answer out of that one in regards to how long it's been. I could be wrong and I'm just not sure, but what we also see is that, Garp then of course finds Koby and finds Helmeppo, and he starts to train them. And the moment I can see that Garp realizes that Koby has what it takes to be in Sword, and that like Sengoku sees the same thing, is the moment when Koby stands up to Akainu at the Battle of Marineford. After Ace is dead, after Whitebeard is dead, after, Luffy's been hurt, and, Koby's just seen enough. He's seen enough Marines die, and he, like, stands up in front of Akainu and, like, begs him to stop this, because it's just a waste of life for what's going to keep happening. For anyone that's going to keep dying, it's just a waste. And, when Akainu prepares to attack him, of course, that's when Shanks shows up, and he's like, he, like, compliments, Koby on, like, how brave that was. And I'm like, yeah, that's freaking brave. He's, this, like, very, very new Marine, hasn't been a Marine for very long, and he just stood up to one of the admirals. that is like the giant magma one that doesn't, that is the world, that literally has the vision of the world as black and white, pirates bad, marines good. And even then, and it's like, oh, you defied me, therefore you are going to die. And Shanks saves Kobe, and from there, Kobe starts to develop his hockey. And I can see that in that time frame, like after Kobe wakes up and has, starts to develop, train in his observation hockey and his armament hockey, like maybe probably has like Garp train him and everything, that like Garp goes to Kobe and he's like, okay, so here's the thing. Sengoku and I, and a couple of select others, have been working on this organization that is called SWORD for the past several years. For the past insert however long. If it includes Roshinate, then, however long ago that would apply to. If it includes, other people, then, however long that's been around. And it's like he explains roughly what it is, and he tells Kobe. And he's like, I think that you would be a very good fit for this because of what I saw you do at Marineford when you stood up to Akainu, that you understand the difference between the world being black and white, and that with Kobe wanting to become a Marine because he looks at Marines as the people that are the heroes. I can tell you now, if Kobe grew up in the North Blue and like read the World Economic Times where they had, where he could read about the the Sora warrior of the sea and everything with the Germa, that he would have been a huge Sora fan. I can assume that. And, during that time frame, he probably also would have read all of that. Maybe he ended up learning about that later on and ended up reading it. But, he's like, so you don't want to stop the pirates that are like Luffy and his crew that have actually been helping people, like with what happens at Shellstown and with, other things that happened with Luffy and everything, you don't want to hurt them. You want to hurt the pirates that are actually out there hurting people, and actually also stop the corrupt Marines and government and different things like that. Yes. No offense, sir. That sounds a lot like what your son wants to do. Garp. Yeah, I know. And like I can see that, it's like, obviously Kobe becomes a member of SWORD, and like sometime in that time frame, possibly Helmeppo and whoever else may also become members of SWORD or may already be a member of SWORD. We don't know. As I said, candidates are Smoker and Tashigi, possibly Fujitora, considering what he saw at Dressrosa and everything. We don't know about Ryokogu. We don't know enough about them to be able to determine whether or not they would be a possible candidate for SWORD. But so we see that, but then on the other side of that, we have Dragon and how he's been working for a long time to try to, build up this army, this revolutionary army that he can use to stop, what the world government is doing. And as he stated, Dragon doesn't necessarily have a problem with the world government in regards to the concept of the different leaders communicating with each other, with like the reverie itself, like that concept of all these leaders working together. That's not the problem Dragon has a problem with. His problem is with the world nobles and the Gorosei and everything that happens at Marie Joie, with all that concept of just like, oh, you have to swear loyalty to this empty throne, and you have to, swear loyalty to the Gorosei, and that, you have to always pay this tribute and all this other stuff. That's his problem. Not not the leaders working together. And, and like, I'm kind of the same way. It's like, yeah, that part I'm fine with. It's the other parts that I don't like. That, it's like, oh, you only get the protection of the Marines if you've paid your tribute. It's like, that's, if you've paid this tribute, then the Marines will protect you. If you haven't paid this tribute, then the Marines, they don't have any reason to protect you because you're not a member of the world government. Which we see kind of the implications of that actually rather well shown during the Little East Blue arc that they have before the episodes of the series tie-in for Strong World, because they're an island that doesn't have any marine protection because they don't have the ability to pay the tribute. But one of the other things is that I can also see that, like, during this time frame, Dragon and Garp have communicated, because, Garp learned about the fact that, like, Dragon had been at Logtown when Luffy had been there before he left. Now, he probably got that information from, like, Smoker making a report about it. With Smoker being like, oh, well, yeah, we have an issue. What? Monkey D. Dragon, the revolutionary, was here in town. Oh, did you catch him? No, I'm a captain, and he's the frickin' head of the Revolutionary Army. Why do you think I could have caught him? Type of thing. He just was there, and then he left, and I don't know what happened. And there was a storm, and then there was this rubber kid, and I don't know. Now I'm gonna go chase the rubber kid through the Grand Line. Smoker, get back to your post. I'm sorry I can't hear you anymore. But, with that, it's like, okay, well, did Garp do, are Garp and Dragon continuously in communication with each other? And if so, maybe some of the Marines that are members of Sword, because if the Marines that are a member of Sword help, the Revolutionary Army, help when it comes to, like, this battle, that, like, maybe Dragon gives, like, an order, like, communicates to all the different members of Sword that are just like, okay, here's what you do. You go after this person. You, save Sabo, free him, free whoever else is there, possibly Vivi, whoever else. Free them, get them to safety. Get Sabo back with the Revolutionary Army, whatever the case may be. And then you cause as much chaos as possible within the Marines. You cause as much problem. And, possibly. I'm like, this is kind of like what happens with, like, Hydra inside of S.H.I.E.L.D. and, the MCU, with everything that happens there, with, Captain America the Winter Soldier, and, of course, what happens in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. This is, very similar to what happens with that, but it's Sword is actually probably, hopefully, a better secret organization than, Hydra was, because Hydra was very obviously evil secret organization. Sword, hopefully not so much, because Kobe does not strike me as that type of person that would, be able to, pretend to be super sweet and then be evil. Kobe does not strike me as that. Of course, the one that can pull that off the best is Sugar. But so my thought is that, like, Luffy, or that Dragon and Garp have continued to communicate over the years. Code, very small messages left for each other, different things like that. Dragon has built up his Revolutionary Army, and Garp has, built up Sword inside of the world government, inside of the Marines, with possibly Sengoku's help. He's got Drake, he's got Kobe. Hopefully Drake isn't dead. Yeah, he was stabbed in, the neck by, the CPI just zero agent that is most definitely dead at this point in time, but hopefully Drake's not dead, because I like Drake. I don't want Drake to be dead. I don't really want Ulti or Page 1 to be dead either. Who's who? Don't know. Queen, I don't care. Queen can die for all I care. Jack can kind of die too. I don't want King to die though. Or at least not yet. I don't see King becoming an ally, but I can at least see maybe something happening with King. We need more backstory on the Lunarians, that's for sure. But, I can see that. I can see, Dragon, Garp, and, whoever else is members of Sword building that up, and that, like, it's just going to be like these two forces where, the revolutionaries and the Sword end up kind of working together, and then, like, once this big war is finished, hopefully the Marines that kind of have the ideals of Sword, that understand the fact that, pirates are not all bad and Marines are not all good, that corruption is corruption regardless of who it's from, regardless of whether or not it's the world nobles. What they did is wrong. What they do is wrong. It might be something along those lines. But that'll be something that we have to wait and see, because at the moment that I'm recording this, chapter 1043 just, came out. So it's just like, okay, Luffy turned to Goop and his Joy Boy. I want to know what's going on. It's just like that's what happened right before I recorded this video. I'm like, well, we shouldn't get any more information about Drake in the next like 2 to 3 weeks by the time this video goes up. So yeah. But so we'll see what happens with that. But I don't want Drake to die. Hopefully we'll see him pop back up again. And we'll see what other happened with Kobe with having to go deal with Boa Hancock. Although they could just both be like nerding out over, oh my god, you've met Luffy. Oh my god, Luffy is awesome. Oh my god, Luffy. He punched me in the face once. Oh, he did? He had to hide under my dress once. Obviously, Kobe is the one that got punched. Boa is the one that had to have Luffy hide under her dress. Obviously. Boa. I keep asking him to marry me, but he keeps saying no. Kobe. I met a pink-haired girl that is like really likes Luffy too. I will destroy her. She doesn't have a crush on him. She just likes him. Please don't hurt her. She's a princess. Boa. I can see that happening, but we'll see what happens with, what else happens with Sword and the Revolutionary Army. So that's what I have. I thank you very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I hope that you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. Let's stop this already. No more fighting. Let's end this. This is a waste of lives. Each one of these Marines has a family waiting for them at home, and we've already completed our goal. Chasing after pirates who have no will to fight, desiring for wars that could be prevented, abandoning Marines that could be saved if attended to, and just piling more sacrifices on top of them. Every Marine that falls from here on out, don't you think they'll look like complete idiots?